Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. I hope you are well. So today we have very amazing and very nice personality. His name is Kirk. So first of all, thank you so much for your time and coming to my show. Before moving on, Houston, please introduce yourself.
I'm Kirk Hazlett, and at this point in my life, I'm a part-time adjunct professor of public relations at the University of Tampa here in Florida. I taught for 20 years in Massachusetts, taught public relations. And just to back up from there, for about 30 years before that, I worked in public relations, both for the U.S. government, active duty military, as well as civil service, and then for private organizations, technology, public relations agencies, nonprofit organizations. So been a little bit of everything, experienced just everything I could think of, and having fun today, sharing with my students, future professionals, what it's like out in the real world.
Okay, very nice. Thank you for your introduction. Okay, so my first question on your screen is, what was Kirk's original profession before becoming a professor?
That's a very, very good question, and something I talk about a lot. Um, I started out. I'm going to go all the way way back, and so when I graduated from the University of Georgia back a long time ago, um, I went into the military. I had no choice. This was the Vietnam War era, and I joined the Air Force and went to Vietnam. Spent 2 years in Vietnam teaching English. Enjoyed being in the classroom. So I thought that might be what I want to do. But as I moved in my military career, moved up, I became more of a manager. And I realized I didn't really want to teach. I wanted to do something in management. And so I have a bachelor's degree in English. That's where I started. Then I got a bachelor's degree in business management. And I went on and got a master's degree after that. But again, story I love to share here is for my bachelor's degree, I had to take an elective course, anything that I wanted to take, elective. And you always look for the easiest thing you possibly can. And I found this thing, it was called Introduction to Public Relations. And I read the description. I said, anybody can do that one. So I took the course. And as I was reading the book, I go, oh my, that's what I did for 6 years in the Air Force. I just didn't know that's what it was called. So I immediately changed my focus, finished my military service, 8 years, and was looking for a job. And the United States Army had a civilian job internship in public affairs. I read the description. I go, that's exactly what I want to do. Cool. So that was where I started. Started as an intern, learning public relations obviously from the military perspective, but it was PR, and moved on. Did that for about 5 or 6 years and decided, okay, it's been fun, but I want to try something else. So I resigned from the government and found jobs in the private sector. Did a bunch of different kinds, discovered by experience that my best fit was in the nonprofit area. So I worked for a number of nonprofit organizations, but a lot more than you asked for there. But the thing is that you have to find out what it is that you really enjoy doing, that makes you feel good and that you're good at doing. And I did, obviously. I figured that was out, and spent the next 20 years working in various PR jobs. Then an opportunity came to teach public relations part-time at a university in Massachusetts where I was living. I started doing that and discovered oh my, I love teaching again, but now I'm teaching something that I have experience in. So yes, you have to read the textbook, and yes, you will be given tests about the textbook, but most of what I teach is real life experiences. This is what happened today, or this is what happened yesterday, or this is what is happening in the world. And I turn to the class and say, okay, what would you do? So we make it a real life. So again, that's where I am today. And I thought I had retired when we moved down here to Florida. But I got a call from the University of Tampa asking if I'd be interested in coming for an interview. And I said, why not? And so I have been a part-time adjunct professor at the University of Tampa for now going almost 8 years. So still doing it. But that's where I am. Tried a little bit of all of these kinds of things and love what I'm doing.
Yes, sure, very nice answer. Thank you for your amazing answer, sir. So my next question on your screen is that how many years did you work in public relation and marketing?
Well, if you take the total military service plus civilian life, it was about 40 years. I would say from roughly 1968 until 2001. So did it had say, but it was not just in one job. I worked for several different companies, both in the United States, um, in Hawaii. I went to Hawaii for a couple of years, aloha, um, and and then while I was in the Air Force, to go back to that, I was in the Philippines for about 3 years, and then at three different Air Force bases in the United States. So I moved around a little bit, had a chance to do different things, and had fun all the way.
That's great answer. Thank you so much for your amazing answer, sir. So my next question is in which countries has worked professionally?
Well, for the professional official life, as I say, I was in the Philippines for a little while. That was part of my military assignment, but most of the time has been in the United States. Now, I've done consulting work for nonprofit organizations in Singapore, in Europe, and Great Britain, as well as in France, but mostly has been in the United States.
Okay, nice. What can you tell me what kind of work you do in the non-profit sector?
My job primarily it's to use the general term communication, public relations, marketing, advertising. I did all of those different types as for different assignments. And my job was to get publicity for my organization and to help others understand what and who my organization was. So many times when I would go to an organization and I would talk to people in the community, people in the street, if you will. And I'd say, do you know about, and so many times I'd get this blank look like, I don't even know who you're talking about. And in fact, I go back and use this. I love to give this example. My very, very first job, this was in the working for the United States Army, civilian, so not nonprofit necessarily, but also not for profit. It was government. And my wife and I had gone up to Massachusetts to find a place to live. And I also had an interview with the commander of the school where I would be teaching or where I would be working. I went downtown, a little town outside of the Army base where I would be working, and went into different stores. and was introduced myself. I'm Kirk Hazlett. I'm going to be working here. What do you know about this organization? Almost 100% of the people I talked to said, I don't have any idea who you're talking about. Okay. So then I went in to meet my future boss. And his first question to me, because he really didn't want me there, he said, why are you here? Sir, I have been downtown talking to local businesses. You have been here for more than 40 years. You're the largest organization on this Army base, and nobody knows who you are. You have an image problem. I am going to fix it. Now, he was an Army colonel. He had never had anybody civilian talk to him like that before. But that was when I knew that that's where I was good. What I was very, very good at was helping people understand who we are. So roundabout answer to this, but a little bit of everything, but all of it to focus attention on and build awareness of my organization.
Very amazing answer. Thank you so much, Kirk, for your answer. So my next question on your screen is, what type of roles do you hold in government-related public relations?
For the government-related public relations, it was, and I'll use the job titles and then try to explain it. The first one was that one I was talking about. It was called the United States Army Intelligence School. I was the public affairs officer. I was the top person. I had one other person working for me, but I was the lead for all public relations activities for an institution. We were equivalent to we had been certified at a junior college level. The training we gave was actually almost at university level. And my job was to take care of media relations, community relations, employee relations, making sure that all of our employees, we had almost 3,000 employees, help make sure that they knew what was going on. Making sure our students, we had about 3,000 students, make sure that they know what's going on. And staying in touch with the media to stay on their radar screens so that if they were working on a story that might have some relevance to what we were doing, they would call me and say, hey, Kirk, can we come out and talk to you about whatever? So mostly that. Then I went to the Army Recruiting Command in Boston, Massachusetts. And there I was mostly in charge of media relations, working with the newspapers, television stations, arranging interviews with soldiers, with different levels within our organization there, but mostly just in charge of one of the specific activities for the overall communication activities.
Okay, very nice answer. Thank you so much for your amazing answer. So, also my next question is, what communication programs did you manage for healthcare organizations?
You know, again, it's going to sound like kind of repeating myself on stuff. I'll use the one that was most directly healthcare. That was the Blood Bank of Hawaii in Honolulu, Hawaii. I was in charge of the entire communication activities. So I handled media relations, working with the newspapers, magazines, television, radio, all of that. I also did the marketing. I was in charge of our advertising budget. So I did advertising on radio and television and occasionally in print publications. I did community relations. When I would go out into the community, give speeches to different organizations, arrange for special activities for different organizations. all of those kinds of, and then I also did again internal communication to make sure that our employees always knew what was happening right then, so that they weren't surprised when they saw something in the newspaper or saw it on television. I had already told them about it. So again, the full sort of gamut, if you will, of communication program, everything under the sun. It was the most fun and the most comprehensive because, as I say, advertising, marketing, public relations, the whole thing. A lot of fun.
Okay, very nice. So that means you do lot of thing in a one time. That's great. Thank you for your answer. So my next question on your screen is, what was your role with the US Army in terms of communications?
That one, it was, again, it depended on where I was. I worked with two different major organizations. The Army we called it the Army Recruiting Command, where we were responsible for recruiting soldiers. And my job there was media relations. My job was to be the liaison for in the Boston area, Boston, Massachusetts is where we were, to make sure that if something happened, positive or negative, that the media were aware of what really happened, so they don't make up a story or give the wrong story. My job was to make sure that they were clear. And my mantra, what I've always said when I'm working with the media, is I will not tell you what I'm doing. I will show you what I'm doing. Come down here to my organization. I'll show you what we're doing. And that went a long way. One reporter one time said, "Kirk, you are the first person ever in this organization to invite me into his office." But yeah, it's better if you can see what's going on instead of trying to understand what's going on. So again, did it all, had a lot of fun doing all of the different kinds of things. And if I had a chance to do it again.
Yes, very nice answer. Also, can you tell me what were these responsibilities while working with US Air Force?
Okay. This one I did a little bit of everything. I started off, as I think I said at the very, very beginning, my first assignment was teaching English as a second language to the Vietnamese military. This was 1968. The Vietnam War was going on. And what we were doing was teaching Vietnamese military, Air Force, Army, and Navy enough English, conversational English, so that they could come to the United States, go to one of our training programs, whatever their specialty was, and get extra training. So I really, really enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun teaching them those things. Then when I came back to the United States after Vietnam, we didn't need English language instructors back then. So I went into audiovisual services, and I managed film libraries, multimedia libraries at different bases, 1, 2, 3 different bases in the United States. So again, it was community relations in a different kind of setting, but it was always about communication. Maybe the job, audiovisual services, was doing those things, showing movies at officers' clubs and things, but it was also helping people around us understand the resources that were available to them. for training programs, for education, for entertainment, whatever it might be. So everything, but as interesting as I look back on it, everything pointed toward public relations.
Amazing, very nice answer. Okay, so also, what experience did you gain while working in wedding?
One important lesson that I always like to tell: never, ever assume that other people don't know what you're talking about. Now, let me give the example. I'm teaching English as a second language. Theoretically, the students don't know anything about English. My specialty in college was English literature. I did not study grammar. I avoided grammar. But I'm in the classroom, and I realize after a while that once in a while, I'm going to be writing something on the board, blackboard, and someone is going to ask me about it. Mr. Hazlett, what is that verb form, or what is that? And I would say maybe probably 90% of the time, I had no idea. And so, but I figured, well, they don't know either, so I'll just make it up. And I would come up with an answer, and it sounded pretty good. And sometimes it was right. Sometimes I had no idea what I was talking about. Then one day, I got asked the question, Mr. Hazlett, what is that on the board? I had no idea. I made it up. A very, very quiet voice in the back of the classroom spoke up. Excuse me, Mr. Hazlett, you're wrong. I remember his name. This is 1969. I remember his name, Mr. Fu. Okay, Mr. Fu, what is it? He starts explaining, and I realize about 2 sentences into his explanation, this guy knows what he's talking about. Mr. Fu, how did you know that? Well, before I was drafted into the Army, I was a professor of French at the University of Saigon. I have a PhD in French, and I also studied English. Mr. Fu, from now on, you will answer the questions. But what it taught me was, yeah, maybe you don't know. If you don't know the answer, be honest and say, I don't know the answer, but I will find out. Because odds are someone in that room is going to know what you're talking about. They're going to be a lot smarter. So that was mostly I learned that, but I also learned management skills. I managed everything that I needed to move on in my professional career and move up and succeed.
Okay, that's a nice story. Thanks for telling us. So my next question on your screen is, what kind of consulting do you provide to the Manila Red Cross?
That was interesting. It's, the director of the Manila Red Cross came into my office one day. I was working at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, and in their audiovisual library. I was in charge of the main services there, and she really came in just looking for some informational films. This is back when we had 16 millimeter films that we don't know about today, but looking for things because we had a lot particularly in Manila, but also throughout that section of the Philippines, a lot of foreign, if you will, residents, people working in embassies and businesses from the United States, from Europe, wherever it might be. And what she wanted to do was to start doing some educational films we started off, interestingly, I had a film on safe driving in snow and ice, because guess what? Parts of the United States in the wintertime, we have snow and ice. And so I helped her with films on various kinds of things. I also helped her to really promote what she was doing. They were doing a good job. So I no way to, I could say that they didn't know what they were doing, but help them to build out a community relations program that attracted more clients for them. So a lot of fun there, something completely unexpected, and I got a very nice certificate from them thanking me for all that I had done.
Wow, very nice, amazing. Okay, in the last, what advice you should give us to our audience? So, your audience.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that one.
What advice you should give us to our audience?
Thank you. Sorry, and very much it's be aware of and try to help yourself understand what your strengths are. What are you good at? For example, and I'll take this now and talk about my students. One thing that I go crazy about is, yes, you study the courses, all the different courses that are required for your degree, but do internships. Do an internship so you can learn what kind of organization you are most comfortable in, and again, what your strengths are. So this is, don't just go through and do what is required and kind of that. Pay attention, talk to people, network, go outside and meet business people, meet people who you think are interesting, and get their perspective, their input. What do they think? So that when you graduate and you walk out the door with your diploma in your hand, you've got an idea. And if you're lucky, as many of my students have been, you have a job offer, an opportunity. But it takes work. Talk to your faculty advisor, talk to your teachers, get their advice. And then if you think there's an area that you are interested in, a professional area, find people in that area and talk to them. Find out, how did they get where they are today? What would they do differently if they could? But again, it's work, yeah, but it will make life so much simpler because you kind of have an idea where you're going. I'll use this one thing. One of my favorite books is Alice in Wonderland. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Alice in Wonderland is a story of a young girl. She's wandering through a magic world. And she's walking down a road one day, and she comes to a fork in the road. And she stops and she looks at a cat up in a tree, and she says, "Cheshire Cat, which fork should I take?" And the cat said, "Well, it depends very much on where you want to go." And she said, "Well, I don't really care." He said, "Well, then it doesn't really matter." But that's just it. Know where you want to go so that when you come to that point, you know which fork in the road to take. I thought, go back to when I got out of left the government service, I thought technology was where I wanted to go. There just happened to be a major organization close to where I lived that had an opening for a public relations specialist. And I go, oh, goody. Technology, PR, this is going to be good. What I didn't realize is I have absolutely that much interest in technology. I don't care. But it was my first civilian job. I learned. After that, I networked. I met with people to find out what kind of stuff I would be most interested in and focused on that. And that's how we wound up in the nonprofit healthcare area, is because that was what I'm best at and most comfortable in. So it's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Okay, first of all, very nice to meet you and to chat with you. I hope thanks for coming. So everyone, this was our today's interview. I hope you learned something new and also got know about so quick. Thank you so much, Harpreet, for giving your time and precious time. So bye everyone. See you soon. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.